It started out like any ordinary day, until it took a deadly turn. A black woman was pulled over by a white police officer on what seemed like a routine traffic stop. But within moments, everything spiraled out of control. Tensions escalated, voices rose, and then a gunshot echoed. The woman, calm and composed just seconds before, was left wounded on the ground. The officer claimed it was self-defense, but what he didn't know, what would change everything, was that the woman he shot was not only innocent, but also a high-ranking FBI agent working undercover. As the news spread, so did the outrage. Community members rallied for justice, demanding answers and accountability. The department scrambled to control the fallout, but the truth had already started unraveling. The woman's identity was revealed in court, and what followed was a trial that gripped the nation. Every detail uncovered painted a darker picture of bias, misuse of power, and a system that too often turns a blind eye, until now. The courtroom was packed, cameras rolled, and when the verdict finally came down, it was one of the harshest sentences ever given to an officer in such a case. But was it justice, or just damage control? And what did the FBI agent say when she finally broke her silence? The truth might shake everything you thought you knew. Before the incident, Agent Maya Roberts had been deep into an undercover investigation, gathering evidence on a dangerous trafficking ring that stretched across state lines. She was working without backup, her identity known only to a handful of people at the Bureau. To the world, she was just another face in the crowd, no badge, no protection. That day, she was on her way to meet a key informant when Officer Bradley Carter pulled her over. Officer Carter had a reputation, not on record, but whispered among locals. Aggressive during stops, especially toward people of color, and known for making snap judgments. Body cam footage later showed Maya calmly providing her ID, her voice steady, her hands clearly visible. But something about her confidence, or maybe just her presence, seemed to set him off. Within seconds, he reached for his weapon. The shot rang out, leaving her bleeding beside her car as he called for backup. What Carter didn't expect was what happened next. Maya, fighting to stay conscious, whispered a name, an FBI code. First responders recognized it and everything shifted. The agents arrived, not as medics, but as colleagues ready to protect one of their own. Suddenly, this wasn't just a shooting, it was a federal matter. The deeper they dug, the more twisted the story became, and Carter's world started to unravel. As Agent Maya Roberts lay in the hospital, her identity no longer a secret, the media storm exploded. Headlines screamed about the shooting of a black woman, a federal agent, by a local cop with a questionable history. The public demanded justice, while law enforcement scrambled to control the damage. But behind closed doors, things got even more complicated. Maya's undercover work wasn't just sensitive. It was tied to a massive federal investigation involving corrupt officials, money laundering, and human trafficking. Her cover being blown didn't just endanger her, it risked the entire operation. Meanwhile, Officer Carter maintained his story. He claimed she posed a threat, that he felt something was off. But his own department started pulling away when inconsistencies in his reports surfaced. The body cam footage didn't show what he claimed. His record was re-examined. Old complaints, once buried or ignored, suddenly came back into the light. Former victims began speaking up, telling stories that painted a very different picture of the man in uniform. At the same time, Maya's colleagues at the FBI faced a dilemma. Revealing too much about her mission could ruin the case they'd spent years building. But staying silent risked letting Carter manipulate the truth. Pressure built from every side, public outrage, political tension, and the looming threat of the criminal network Maya had been investigating. And somewhere, someone was watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. As the trial approached, tensions escalated to a breaking point. Protests filled the streets, demanding justice for Maya, while others took to social media to question the fairness of the system. In the courtroom, the pressure was palpable. Maya's family sat at the front, her mother's face a mask of pain, hoping for justice, but fearing a broken system. Meanwhile, Carter's defense team painted him as a hero, a man who was simply trying to protect himself in an unpredictable, dangerous situation. It was a classic defense, but there was a problem. Every new witness and piece of evidence only seemed to chip away at Carter's story. Behind the scenes, Maya's team had to scramble to protect her undercover mission, knowing the entire case could be compromised if the wrong information got out. The FBI kept a tight lid on the details, but as the trial progressed, someone started leaking information to the press. Whispers began spreading about the corruption within law enforcement, about officials at the highest levels being involved in the very trafficking ring Maya had been investigating. Someone wanted the trial to fail, but who? Maya, still recovering, watched from a distance, powerless to stop what was happening. She knew the stakes were higher than just her life. If the trial failed, if Carter walked free, the criminal network she'd been trying to dismantle would only grow stronger. The FBI would lose its grip, and those who had been depending on her work might never get the justice they deserved. But just as things reached a boiling point, a breakthrough came, a tip that would finally reveal the full extent of the conspiracy, but it came with a deadly price. Maya knew there would be no turning back. Just as Maya's team was piecing together the final strands of the criminal network, everything shifted. The tip they had received wasn't from an anonymous whistleblower. It came from inside the FBI itself. A mole had infiltrated their ranks, feeding information directly to the very people they were trying to take down. The realization hit like a thunderclap. The corruption wasn't just within local law enforcement. It was woven deep within the FBI, an organization meant to protect and serve the public. Maya's heart raced as the magnitude of the situation set in. Not only was her life on the line, but now the entire operation was compromised. She tried to recall every encounter, every conversation in the days leading up to the shooting, wondering if someone close to her had been feeding details to Carter's associates. She felt the walls closing in around her. Who could she trust now? As if to fuel the fire, a stunning development came in the form of a leaked video, a hidden camera clip that surfaced online. It showed Officer Carter not just acting out of self-defense, but actively participating in the criminal activities Maya had been investigating. The video revealed Carter shaking hands with known traffickers, exchanging cash, and receiving instructions. The bombshell sent shockwaves through the community, but the damage was already done. It was a deliberate move, meant to destabilize everything Maya had worked for. But the true danger now wasn't just Carter. It was the network pulling strings from behind the scenes, and they were watching her every move. With this new information, the stakes were higher than ever. Maya had no choice but to confront the darkness closing in from every angle. But the closer she got to uncovering the truth, the more she realized that someone was setting her up for an even bigger fall. Every decision felt like a step into a trap. And now, no one was safe, not even her own colleagues. The walls of the courtroom felt like they were closing in on everyone involved, but Maya knew she couldn't back down now. With the leak about Carter's involvement in the trafficking ring, the case had taken a dramatic turn. It seemed as though victory was within reach. But as the trial neared its final stages, Maya's worst fears were realized. The mole inside the FBI had struck again, and crucial evidence that could have sealed Carter's fate went missing, just days before the final verdict was to be announced. Panic gripped the investigation team as they scrambled to track down the missing files. It wasn't just the integrity of the case at stake anymore, it was Maya's very life. As she walked through the halls of the courthouse, the weight of the truth pressing on her, she realized how much of her world had been orchestrated by people she thought she could trust. The feeling of betrayal was suffocating, but there was no time for hesitation. She needed to act fast. The climax came when, in a twist of fate, a last-minute confession came from an unexpected source, one of Carter's fellow officers who had secretly been working with the FBI to expose the corruption within their own ranks. The officer, fearing for their life, handed over a cache of digital evidence that would blow the case wide open. With this new material, Carter was finally arrested, not just for the shooting, but for his active role in the trafficking ring. But as Maya stood in front of the cameras, ready to speak out and deliver the long-awaited justice, she felt a sudden chill run down her spine. The mole, the one who had been manipulating events from the shadows, had never been caught. Someone had been pulling the strings all along, and they weren't finished yet. As Maya walked out of the courthouse, she glanced at the crowd, half expecting a familiar face to emerge from the crowd with one final dangerous move. The battle wasn't over. It had only just begun.